United Nations has called for the release of the former mayor of Jombe Penja. Paul Eric Kinge has been in prison for close to 7 years now. Journalists say the profession is on the balance. Collection and dissemination of information could be hampered by government's intimidation. Plus, the president of Zambia drops dead, succeeded by the deputy president, Guy Scott. Those are the top stories. I will be right back. Good evening, thanks for joining us in this midweek edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinox Television. We begin straight away with the recent court trial of some 3 Cameroonian journalists, which could hamper collection and dissemination of information in Cameroon. These are the views of some Douala-based journalists. They told our reporters that it is an act of intimidation by the Biya regime. Etofle, Rosalie reports.
Est-ce que le journaliste a tort d'avoir un secret?
David Nowo is the editor-in-chief at La Nouvelle Expression newspaper. He is categoric. The convocation and indictment of the 3 journalists by the Yaoundé Military Tribunal is an act of intimidation against the press in Cameroon. He says journalists are not ordinary citizens who should face such allegations as to detaining information which could jeopardize the security of the nation.
Ils avaient ce secret en tant que journaliste, c'est pour ça qu'on les a contactés.
A similar point of view holds Jacques Dubel, editorialist at Le Messager newspaper. Crimes committed by journalists are guided by the law of 1990.
Encore que nous recevons tellement de documents par jour dans nos rédactions, ça vous pouvez témoigner.
Journalists, he says, receive several information, but then not all have been published, not especially if they could be dangerous to the safety of the nation. Jacques Dubel says Felix Ebola, Baba Wame, and Rodrigue Tonke might all have received whatever information, but then as journalists, not as ordinary citizens.
Nous devons faire bloc autour de ce genre de choses pour que ça ne se répète pas.
Gumba Endele is a senior journalist at CRTV Littoral. He says the indictment of the 3 pressmen is no threat to the profession.
If there's one thing President Biya will leave behind us a shining legacy, is the freedom of speech we enjoy in this country. And I don't see the same President Biya turning around and fighting one of the most important pillars of his governance, which has to do with the press.
He calls on authorities in charge of the matter to be considerate.
The dangers facing Cameroon cannot come from journalists. And
while at Tangana, Emmanuel, editor-in-chief of FM Sangseng Douala, rather holds that the current case is in line with the penal code of the country, which incriminates any person in possession of an information which concerns the stability of the country, but then who does not notify authorities. 3 journalists, Atangna says, are being tried as ordinary citizens.
Mais pour le cas d'espèce, ils sont poursuivis pour ce qu'ils n'ont jamais diffusé. C'est différent.
Thanks for that report. The United Nations has called on the Cameroonian government to release without any condition Paul Eric Kinge. This follows a resolution adopted by the human rights arm of that organization. The former mayor of Jombe Penja has been in prison for close to 7 years now. Details in the following report. The committee in charge of human rights at the United Nations has described the arrest and detention of Paul Eric Kinge as arbitrary. In resolution number 38 of 2014, following the 70th session of the committee on August 29 this year, the group has called on the Cameroonian government to release without condition the former mayor of Jombe Penja and pay damages incurred, including moral and material, during his close to 7 years in jail. Paul Eric Kinge, arrested and detained on February 29, 2008, in the heart of the famous February strike that year, is accused of inciting violence and destruction of government properties, including the Penja plantation. The former mayor of the ruling CPDM party was first incarcerated at the Kongsamba prison before being transferred to the New Best Central Prison in Douala. After spending 3 years in jail, Paul Eric Kinge was again accused this time around of embezzling 10.2 million francs CFA, money allegedly meant for water project at the Jombe Penja Council. He is condemned to life imprisonment by the Wuri Court. The late Wuri Court of Appeal will later reduce the sentence to 10 years imprisonment on November 14, 2012. On October 2, 2013, Paul Eric Kingi writes to Human Rights Commission of the United Nations. The committee's response is expected to be the last key to unlock the cells of Paul Eric Kingi. This same committee was actively involved in the case of the release Thierry Michel Atangana and Pierre Desiré Ngo. And let's now take you to the town of Betua to discover a female commercial motorbike rider. The 27-year-old Gladys Feje Kwete is one of those women who strongly believe that gender equality could also extend to commercial motorbike riding. Let's have the details with Regan Foba.
The population of Betua is abreast with the bike jacket number 2741, belonging to Gladys Fejo Kwete, the lone woman involved in commercial bike transportation in the town of Betua. She says she had tried other jobs which did not work like she would have loved them to. She then tried bike riding and noticed she was good at it. She wondered why not take it up as a job, and upon trying, she found out that she was good at it. Despite her interest in the job, she admits that there are moments when it really gets tough. It is true that at the beginning it wasn't easy because it is not something that people have the habit of seeing women do. Many people get at me at the start. It wasn't really easy, but with time, they got used to, and today many people encourage me and it gives me strength to continue. A majority of her clients are men because women usually get scared and put to question her competence. In the city of Betua, she's appreciated by her co-workers and the population who say they've seen in her the passion for the job. She receives maximum collaboration from the police who treat her just like any other bike rider in the town. She adds that unlike other bike riders who close during late hours of the night, she ends her activity at 6 p.m. for security reasons. 27-year-old Gladys Fejo Kwete, who hails from the west region of Cameroon, is a spinster, but having a husband is not her priority. Top on her list is building a house with her bike riding income.
Interesting, Regan Foba. And still in the town of Betua, a gang of armed bandits and a dealer in marijuana have been arrested and are now in police custody. The men of the underworld were caught in the attempt to break into a shop. Regan?
The gang of three, Tatison Fotua Albert, the leader, Famboso Jean-Pierre and Adel Nazi, broke into the shop of the expatriate in broad daylight and made away with a sum of 7 million francs CFA. The police, with the aid of the population, were able to investigate and caught the bandit. The East Regional Delegation of National Security equally seized an important stock of dried Indian hemp transported in a traveler's bag from a man named Yelem Martin. The man cultivates this product in a farm he owns in the Betua 2 neighborhood. He is being detained pending investigations.
And business in Bumyebel have been affected adversely due to the Ebola threat. The bushmeat business, which used to attract customers, has been prohibited, and traders say it is difficult to make ends meet. Mimi Mefo in the following report takes us to Bumyebel.
At Bumyebel, traders are frustrated. Life has taken a different twist since the buying and selling of bushmeat was prohibited. Bushmeat dealers have indulged in the sales of chicken and fish, but customers are still limited. Bumyebel is one of the biggest roundabouts in the country, and it is the heart of commercial activities in the Nyongan Kele. But its popularity and the benefits that business persons were making have dropped significantly since Ebola threatened Cameroon. Bar owners are less busy as few customers show up.
J'appelle, n'est-ce pas, toutes les populations de mon unité à...
The divisional officer from Gok Mapubi has told traders that the decision prohibiting the sales and consumption of bushmeat should be respected so that the health and safety of the population could be guaranteed.
And cyber cafes in Cameroon are now being inundated as many Cameroonians want to travel to the United States of America. The American dream has eaten deep into some persons who go as far as playing the DV lottery for over 10 years, even without success. It is a case of a man, Narcis Kangdem. We have him in the following excerpt.
My job and my state of condition today doesn't permit me to stay in Cameroon. That's why I want to go to the US, because having a decent job is not easy, and then the cost of living in Cameroon is very difficult. So the little I have is just to feed myself and my family, my direct family, and I cannot do any other investment. So that's why I want to go to the US. We Africans, we want to go to the US because first of all, if Europeans want to go to America, it means America is a dreamland. It's a place to be. So why shouldn't I, being an African and the economic situation in my country, it is not favorable for me to stay in my country. I know of people who have been in the US just for 5-6 years. They have come here, they have bought houses, and they have done a lot of investment, which I've been here working for more than 10 years. I'm not capable of doing.
And a brief note out of the country before the second segment of this news. Zambians are now mourning the passing away of their president, Michael Sata. The 77-year-old died Tuesday in a hospital in London while receiving a treatment for an undisclosed illness. Vice President Guy Scott has been appointed as interim president, and fresh presidential elections will be conducted after 90 days, according to the Zambian constitution. And that does it for the first part of this 6 p.m. newscast. The second part dedicated to talking points just in a jiffy. Research modernization allowances giving lecturers sleepless nights in Cameroonian state universities, paralyzing studies in some cases, and what could be holding the government in releasing these research modernization allowances, as well as some university issues we shall be discussing tonight in this edition of the 6 p.m. newscast. And joining us is the Vice President of the Buea chapter of SNES, University of Buea, Dr. Eric Bertrand Fokam. Thanks for joining us in this edition of the news.
Thank you, Mr. Ford.
What is research modernization allowance that is making so much noise in state universities?
Well, Mr. Hansen, the Research Modernization Allowance is a fund that was set up by presidential decree in 2009 in order to improve on the working and research conditions of university professors, to make them more productive and to enable them to be more in a position of solving the problems that are facing this nation and that are facing or challenging their students.
How many times does this allowance come? How many times, how many quarters in a year?
Well, this allowance is part of a special fund whose budget is approved by the National Assembly every year, and it's being disbursed in 4 quarters, that are paid every 3 months. And following disputes on the delay on payment of this allowance, an agreement was reached with the Chancellery, that is the Minister of Higher Education, for the payment of this allowance latest by the 15th of the next month following the expiration of the quarter.
So what could be blocking the money, or what could be blocking this allowance, this research modernization allowance?
Well, those can only be answered by the Minister of Higher Education and the Minister of Finance. In any case, every month we are told is being delayed by the payment of salaries. For Christ's sake, we are university professors, and they should give us answers that can challenge our mind, not give us those. If we were yielding to such explanation, then this nation would definitely be desperate in the kind of professors that we are and in the kind of children we are training for them. So we would rather appreciate that the state or people who are in charge give us reasons that will match our level of intelligence.
Before 2009, doctors, professors, and lecturers were carrying on with their research. Why so much noise about this research allowance?
Well, we must say that the condition was extremely bad. When I say extremely, I mean bad. And an evaluation conducted by the Minister of Higher Education in 2011-2012 showed actually what a tremendous input the institution of this fund has made into the productivity of university professors in terms of the number and the quality of scientific publications made by professors, and also in terms of the number of discoveries that are made in several institutions of higher learning, the number of students who are supervised, and then the quality of these people that we make available every day to solve the problem of the nation. So definitely this fund has come to I would say, boost research at the level of higher education. One. The second thing is that this fund is part of a trade union discussion that would arrive long ago, while Mr. Mebara was still the Minister of Higher Education, and whose completion point ought to have reached in 2002. So we are 12 years, almost 15 years down the road, and we've still not matched the level at which we were supposed to have reached by 2002. And this is completely unacceptable.
Now, it was in August this year. They adopted a resolution that by October 15, if the allowance is not given to lecturers, there should be a strike action. So far, we've seen just the University of Buea and the University of Douala coming up earlier this week. What is so peculiar about the lecturer strike action in the University of Buea from other state universities?
Well, I thank you very much for that question, and even for this opportunity we have been granted, because we at the University of Buea have been depicted to this nation as some monsters, and I'm sure that my appearing here on this panel will definitely show to Cameroonians that we don't carry horns or thorns on our body. Instead, we are peaceful university professors who are concerned with the development of this country. On August 19, 2014, the Secretary General of the National Union of University Teachers, SINES, notified the Minister of Higher Education in a communique and a letter that the failure to disburse in its entirety the second and third quarters of the research modernization allowance would definitely compromise the resumption of classes in the state universities.
Why this peculiarity in the University of Buea?
Unfortunately, this stumbles on a social climate that is particularly tense at the University of Buea due to the victimization of some university professors, university lecturers by the university administration.
So you are using one stone to shoot two birds?
Not exactly. Not exactly, but definitely the patience of the university professors and the University of Buea is definitely disturbed, and as such, it was a little hard for them to hold their patients again in such a condition.
How serious was the last strike action that was observed by SINES, the latest strike action? Because the Vice Chancellor of the University of Buea made an outing saying that there was no strike action, that the students went to classes and everything was calm. How serious was it?
Well, the Vice Chancellor is in her role to claim that everything went on 100%. But you are men of the media, you are men of the press. You definitely went onto the campus, you visited the lecture theaters, and we, on our own part, as SINES, we are definitely claiming that the strike was followed over 96–97%. That is the statistic we got, those are observations, and to stress this, we need to say that we are all Cameroonians and we know how our country functions. For the division of dialogue at the Ministry of Higher Education to open discussion, talks with us on this matter, it definitely means that their own data is completely different from what the Vice Chancellor of the University of Buea has.
You said it was a warning strike?
Yes, it was. And we have reiterated we have notified administration again that if by the 7th of November, all the lecturers are not entirely paid, then we will then embark on an indeterminate strike action.
Now you are here, let's benefit from your presence. Now 2 lecturers in the University of Buea, Martin Sango as well as Richard Eno, I don't know if they are doctors, they will be appearing before the Disciplinary Council on October 31.
Well, I'm sorry to disappoint you, sir, but Dr. Sango and Dr. Agbo will definitely not appear before any disciplinary panel on Friday 31st. And that is the position of the SINES University of Buea chapter. If you allow us, we're going to try to place the whole story in its context by first stating the facts. Dr. Sango is notified by a friend of a discussion between two students claiming they have spent 120,000 through a third party to bribe him in order to pass two of his courses during the receipt exams that held in September. Dr. Sango identifies the students and reports the incident to his head of department. According to university regulation, any case of examination malpractice must be reported and addressed within 24 hours. The students make a confession, and 2 days after, nothing has been done about it. Dr. Sango notifies the dean of his faculty, the Faculty of Arts, and nothing is still done about it. On that fateful day of the examination, I need to make it clear because there are two issues involved here.
Just very
one
quickly
is an
we're
issue.
out of this interview.
One is an issue of attempt to corrupt teachers, and the second one is an issue of disruption of examination. And unfortunately, SINES is completely against the disciplinary action that is being taken simply because the vindictive statement made by the Vice-Chancellor are such that the Vice-Chancellor has already judged and condemned these people even before hearing anything on this matter. Basically, we are saying that no panel set at the University of Buea would be impartial enough to address this matter. And as such, we are calling on a neutral panel to be set up eventually by the mechanism set in place at the Ministry of Higher Education in order for these teachers to have a fair hearing and for their names to be cleared.
So the doctors will not be taking part in that disciplinary...
Not only they will not be taking part, I too have been invited to take part in that panel, and I've notified the Vice-Chancellor that I will not, simply because my invitation is just an attempt to legitimize a panel whose only purpose is to destroy the life and careers of these two colleagues.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Eric Bertrand Foncam. You are the Vice President of the UB chapter of SINES.
Yes, I am. And I thank you for giving us this opportunity to let this nation know that we receive their children, not to teach them and not to give them a criminal record. Thank you.
All right, thanks for joining us in this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinox Television, the midweek. Good night and goodbye from Douala.